Hey everyone, John here! And as time has gone on, consoles have become much more limited with a feature that I think is really cool. And in this day and age, this feature should be really easy to access, and yet so few games actually do. So let's go back to the very beginning with the first game on consoles that I can think of that uses this feature, and that is VibRibbon, the place where all things begin. VibRibbon is a rhythm game for the PlayStation, and a really cool feature of this game is you can take the disc out and put in any CD, and all of a sudden, whatever song you're listening to becomes the rhythm game. This is the first instance on consoles that I can think of custom soundtracks, being able to take your MP3s or your CDs and put them in the game, replace the existing music with your own. And as time has gone on, we have had many games do this across many different consoles. And while VibRibbon deserves its flowers, we have talked about it before, and so let's talk about the original Xbox. Now this console had a hard drive, and I think most people weren't really sure of why it had a hard drive. I mean, there were a few reasons. It could be used for game development, it could be used for DLC, but one thing that was really cool is you could take your CDs and rip them straight to the hard drive. And so the Xbox was a really compelling all-in-one living room media device. You can play games, watch DVDs, and then borrow your friend's CDs and rip them to your hard drive and have them all just in one big playlist. That was awesome. But what was even more awesome is some games were able to utilize this stored music. That wasn't possible on PlayStation 2. Most games you can't just take the disc out and put a CD in, and it can't really store music on a memory card. So on your Xbox hard drive, you can play games like Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball, and all of a sudden, the radio that plays in the background on the island can play any song ripped to your Xbox. Look how cool this is. I decided to rip a Zelda Twilight Princess CD, and so we've got a few Xbox games with Audon Village in, including Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball. By the way, this game has a really cool mini-game where you jump from like pull floaty to pull floaty by pressing the A button at different sensitivities. That's another feature we've lost with consoles. You used to be able to press the A button really hard or press it just a little bit, and that would register as a different input. We've lost that. We've become a horrendous society. And as cool as Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball is, I think Grand Theft Auto is a slightly cooler example. We're using Vice City here, and if there's music ripped to your hard drive, the game is going to recognize that. And when you're going through the radio channels, there's going to be a custom radio channel. So anything that's on your hard drive will show up right here on the custom radio station. So here is Audon Village. If you wanted to, of course, you could make like your own podcast or something and play it on the radio station and pretend that you're famous. That's always a cool thing to do. You might need to burn it to a CD and then rip it to your Xbox to do that, but it should be possible, and I think that's rad as heck. There's two more Xbox games I want to showcase here, and the first one is Counter-Strike. And for those who don't know, the Xbox version of Counter-Strike is like totally original. It's not really based off any other version. It's got original maps, quite different feeling mechanics, and if you go in the options, you can designate different soundtracks to play in the background. Counter-Strike is usually quite a quiet game, which, it's necessary to listen out for gunshots and footsteps, but it's quite ahead of the curve to listen to background music while you're playing a game, just to chill out in an online game and listen to whatever you want. That's something you can quite easily do with most modern games, like you can just put Spotify on in the background, and the music won't really, undermine the game because there's no music in the game. But this lets you do it within the game itself, all the way back on the original Xbox, and I think that's rad as hell. And again, it's Audon Village. And while the Xbox has more supported games, the last one I'm showcasing today is Disney Extreme Skating Adventure. I think that's the title, doesn't sound like a real game. But here is Woody skateboarding around Andy's room with Ordon Village.
Yeehaw! Ride 'em, cowboy!
Never played this game before. Honestly, I had a pretty good time with it. I don't know what the actual soundtrack is like, all I know is it has Ordon Village. That could be the soundtrack for all I know. So the Xbox was the only one leading the crusade in this era. But then, along came a better multimedia device, a portable one, the PSP. Almost everyone was gonna load this thing with music. It was an MP3 player, and one of the best MP3 players of its era. And sometimes this music would find its way into the games themselves. And so a very easy one is Gran Turismo. If you go in the options, you're going to see 2 different file locations. You can just be in the music folder and pick anything there, or you can make your very own GT PSP folder and throw all your songs into one big Gran Turismo playlist and listen to them while you're racing. And I think that's rad as hell.
Ready? Start!
Crazy Taxi Fair Wars is incredibly similar. It doesn't tell you the directory for some reason though. It won't just pull songs from the music folder. You've got to make a new folder called Crazy Taxi within the music folder, and then make a Crazy Taxi playlist. And obviously, the thing to do here is replace the replacement soundtrack with the original Dreamcast soundtrack, being The Offspring. We can say no to all their licensing problems and do it ourselves with our very own Offspring playlist.
Crazy money, are you ready? Here we go! Yeah!
That's all I can play, I'm sorry. But look, it's cool. It was a rather underutilized feature to have custom soundtracks on the PSP, which is a great shame because it's such an easy multimedia device. It's the easiest MP3 player of any console, but that's just the way things were. However, one franchise did have custom soundtracks in a convoluted way. This was Grand Theft Auto with Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories. So custom soundtracks are an option, but it's not going to take MP3 players from your music folder. It doesn't require a GTA folder within the music folder. It requires you to download the Rockstar Custom Soundtrack program on your PC. However, when you go on the Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories page, it's no longer there anymore. So you've got to find a archived version. And when you've got that working, you've got to put a CD in your PC, put your PSP in USB mode, and it's going to rip your CD onto the PSP and put them in a file format called .gta, which is very strange. Your PC can't play these, it's just some strange encrypted format. Years later, people found out this was actually a format called AT9. And so basically you've got to convert an MP3 to AT9 and then replace the extension with .gta. And that's going to do the exact same thing. So just chuck that in a folder like this, and it's going to appear as a custom soundtrack in the game. And so here's me escaping the cops to Puyo Puyo.
Yeah, now I know why I don't pay tax. God damn it, my car! Don't shut the fuck up, buddy.
And we've talked about this example before, but the Wii's got 2 games that have custom soundtrack support as well, which is very uncommon for Nintendo. They've never really ever done this again. But with Excite Truck and Endless Ocean, if you've got a 1GB SD card, nothing higher, for some reason only 1GB, you can load that thing with any song you want and replace the soundtrack. And so when you're diving in Endless Ocean, it can be a bit more like this. Or an Excite truck you can race around just like this. Rad as flip. The Wii does have MP3 support as well, just in general, for the photo channel. This was taken out in future updates for some reason, but you can revert back to the original, and when you're watching your photos or in a slideshow, you can listen to any music you want. It's strange to hide it in a photo app, but it does have MP3 support. Now, we're slowly getting towards the best example we have, but before we get there, let's do the second best example, being PlayStation 3. This has the exact same XMB as PSP, and so you can plug in any USB drive and just copy any track on there to your PS3's hard drive, and then you've got it there in this wonderful media hub. I love the XMB so very much. However, it doesn't work in most games. If you're actively playing the majority of PlayStation 3's library, you're going to get a message like this saying you cannot play music at the same time. But there's still a pretty beefy selection of games that do have active music playing during the game itself. And the best part about this is this automatically disables any background music. And this was definitely an era where soundtrack options were a luxury. Very few games had sound options that allowed you to turn down the music or the sound effects. So this just does it automatically for a pretty big bulk of the library. Not the majority, but a decent selection. And so, for example, when playing Sonic Generations, just press the PlayStation button while playing, go to your MP3s, and play any of them. Any Sonic song you want, perhaps, and put it in the game. Easy as that. The same's true for games like MotorStorm Arctic Edge, which is a hell of a game. Very similar to Excite Truck, which is probably why I like it so much. And just like Excite Truck, custom music, baby. Nation Racers, which by the way has got fan servers now, so you can play online again and download the custom avatars and the custom tracks. Wonderful game, look at this.
First place, kid.
And there's also a few PlayStation 3 games that don't require you to use the XMB to load your custom music. For example, Wipeout HD. In this game you can go into the options, and it's just going to put your custom songs into the game itself without you having to load up the menu and pull up the MP3s. It's just a natural progression. You play the game regularly, it's going to have the usual Wipeout menu theme, and then when you're in, it's your custom song. And I think that's really, really cool. And there's a few other games that do that too, like Burnout Paradise. Just press right on the D-pad while playing and go down to custom soundtrack, and all of a sudden whatever you want is going to play in that game. Wonderful stuff. Now, as cool as all of that is the second best example. The best example of them all is Xbox 360. And the reason for that is this works for pretty much every single game on the console. While you're playing, press the Xbox button, go to your soundtrack, put whatever song you want on, and it's going to disable the music in almost every single game on the system. There are very few games that don't, but the vast majority do. We're talking hundreds upon hundreds of games. And so, again, let's do Crazy Taxi. This version also replaced the Offspring soundtrack. We're not having that. Put them back in! Yeah! That's all we're playing again. We haven't got custom radio stations in GTA 4 like we did in Vice City and San Andreas and Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories, but we can just play any song we want throughout the entire game, while on foot, while in the car. And a really cool part of this too is the game recognizes when the soundtrack is meant to be overridden by the actual game audio. And so when you're in a cutscene, for instance, that has backing music, it's going to disable your song for just a moment, and then put it back in as soon as it's no longer necessary. So games were programmed around being aware of when the custom soundtrack was meant to be in play. Another instance is Silent Hill 2 HD. I'm sorry, that's not the best example, but here we go. Of course, with pre-rendered cutscenes, the audio is part of the video file. They can't just turn off the music in that instance. And so whenever there's a pre-rendered cutscene, it just turns off your music for a second, plays the cutscene as it is, and then you get put back into whatever music you were listening to. I'm gonna be a little freak a second and put the second half of Emerald Coast in Sonic Adventure in the first half. You can't stop me. Another really cool part of this too is you can just put the music for whatever song you're listening to on 0, and that's going to disable any music in the game, and so you just get the sound effects. And it feels weird playing Sonic Unleashed that way, but you can.
Here we go! Yeah!
There are a couple of funny examples in there. When playing Halo 3, a message comes up saying, hey buddy, are you sure you want to be playing like this? And when you play the campaign with the custom music, for some reason it turns the voices off. Like, all the gunshots and sound effects are in there, but any voices are just mute. And even the cutscenes, they lack the subtitles. You've just got visuals going on, which is bizarre. But it's very cool playing multiplayer with your own custom soundtrack in there. But yes, this was pretty much the entire Xbox 360 library. The PlayStation 3 only had a small slither of games, but all the multiplats the PS3 had as well have an extra feature on 360 with the custom soundtracks intact. It is a shame that not that many games had them embedded within the games themselves. Like, I would have loved custom radio stations in GTA. But one example I can think of is Tekken Tag Tournament 2. I love Tekken Tag Tournament 2. When you go onto any stage in the game, you can decide what music every individual stage has if you want to. So of course you can just have your own custom playlist playing all the time. But if you want to have the actual game music otherwise, then you can just say, hey, put Audon Village here! And it will play there. That's rad. As time's gone on, this has become somewhat of a forgotten feature. There was one last hurrah though, the PlayStation Vita. Now, the vast majority of the library does not support this, but a small handful of games do, in the exact same way as Xbox 360. For example, here's Gravity Rush. We're playing the game, we press the PlayStation button, we go to music, we start playing music, and bam, it's replaced the backing soundtrack. It works for other games too, like Everybody's Golf, which is a fantastic game to have your own soundtrack in, and a few multiplats too, like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which didn't work on PlayStation 3, does work on 360, but also works on Vita, and that's rad as hell. There's a couple of others like Uncharted Golden Abyss, but for the most part you're going to find when you're playing games like Monkey Ball, it's just going to overlap the game soundtrack with the music soundtrack, which that's not the way to play. Nowadays, listening to music on your consoles is really easy. There's no need to put MP3s on your console, no need for USB drives, you can just download Spotify or YouTube and listen to whatever you want. And that's cool, but the actual integration has fallen by the wayside. Whenever you do this with PS5 or even Series X, you're not going to be muting the backing track anymore. It's just going to overlap much like it does on most PS Vita games, which is really frustrating. There's only a few games I can think of that do have integration, like Gran Turismo 7, that game does, but the vast majority of the library will not do this. Now, of course, a lot of games these days do have sound options, not all of them, but some do, so you can just mute the music track if you want to, but that's another step in there. It used to be automatic, and that's just not a thing anymore. And it's especially weird on Series X, because the main reason 360 had such a cool use of this is because Microsoft had a patent. They had a patent that allowed them to have custom music. I don't know why PS3 got away with it on some games, but not all of them. But yeah, they had a legally binding idea of this feature, and then ditched it when Xbox One came along. You can even play 360 games on your Series X and they won't support this feature anymore. That's specific to the original 360 hardware. I don't get it, man. I really don't get it. Nintendo have always been quite shielded away from allowing any custom use of things. I'm not surprised Switch 2 or Switch have never supported this stuff. But it is a real shame that Spotify integration just isn't as cool as 360's music. That was the pinnacle of whatever it's been in the past, but never again. Now, am I going to be playing every single game with a custom soundtrack? Obviously not. The game music is tailored to the game itself, and having those vibes, the intended vibes, is an important part of the experience. But there's also times where you just want to chill out with a game you've played 100 times, or chill out in the multiplayer, and having that custom backing track is wonderful. And yeah, you can put music on your phone while you're playing, but it's not the same as this. It's the magic of automatically muting the backing track and having it playing that really makes it cool. And I love seeing it in older games like Vib Ribbon on the PlayStation and all those original Xbox games, because they were so far ahead of their time. And it's just something that has been forgotten, even though it should be easier than ever. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I will catch you next time. Bye-bye.